horse-headed vampire mummy from Croatia. How's that for a unique topic? So a team of archaeologists led by Schirr-Genius have been carefully excavating a medieval Christian cemetery that may have been built by the Knights Templar. Because of a massive flood, this whole area was filled with silt rapidly, and everything has been preserved uniquely well. Hence the mummy portion of this horse-headed vampire mummy. Many signs that the person buried in the sarcophagus was suspected of becoming a revenant, which, as I mentioned in the last video, is an overarching term for anybody who comes back from the dead. Like these guys, vampires, zombies, ghouls, those sort of things. And there are known techniques that different cultures have used to keep people from coming back from the dead. In Appalachia, it's sin eating. In medieval Europe, it was often beheading the corpse and burying it in an east to west direction. But this sarcophagus that they found in Pakrac is unique, because generally a revenant burial would never be inside a Christian graveyard. Further, this is an elaborate and beautiful Gothic sarcophagus. So the argument of Schirr-Genius brings up two possibilities for why this might be. First is that this was a very important person in the town. So even though they suspected demonic interference with that person's body, they made sure to give it a proper Christian burial. The second possibility is that the sarcophagus itself was part of the ritual and that it was so ornate and beautiful in order to keep that body inside. So many of these elements are strange. The decapitation of the corpse and the disinclusion of it from the coffin. The burial orientation, including dirt as a mound where the head would be and then putting horse skull portions in it. None of that is particularly typical behavior for Christians. It is such a clear violation of the rules that Wojciech feels we need to take a step back and reevaluate the situation. Were Christians more accepting of paganism than we thought at the time, or is this indeed proof that the Knights Templar were really engaged in acts of heresy? Depending on how big you are into Catholic conspiracy and or Dan Brown novels, you might remember that the Knights Templar were forcefully quashed and or burned at the stake, accused by Pope Clement V, who ironically did not know what clemency meant. Most famously, this Inquisition tortured a confession out of Jacques de Molay, who was 70 years old at the time, and they promised that they would not burn him at the stake if he just said he was guilty of all the things he had said he had done during torture, publicly. But the joke was on Clement V because he shouted out to the crowd that the big thing that he was most guilty of was failing to say that he loved Christ while being tortured. And then he said he loved Christ, and then they burned him at the stake. And that was the end of the Knights Templar. But yeah, doing things like this, not very, no. The Bible's pretty specific in saying that the only people who are granted eternal life are those who enter the kingdom of heaven. So, to bury a body in an east-west direction with a horse's head on it is pretty heretical. So I'll be adding Pakrac and Schirr-Genius to my Google alerts. Thanks again to Purse or Perse 9812 for your unhinged comment. Those are the best kind.